Hello, Puppet Tea drinkers. Stay tuned for the whole video if you want to see my short film, plus an exclusive audio commentary I've recorded just for supporters of Puppet Tea. So stay tuned for that. All right. This time I want to talk to you guys about my very first puppet film. Not counting the stuff I used to make on VHS. This was my first real production puppet film. And I made it, it came out in 2016, but I started making it around 2013. Something like that. Let's see. It's called Only Savages. It's about two spaceship pilots who are on a mission to kind of destroy planets, kind of like in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they bulldoze Earth out of the way because it's in the way of a galactic bypass. It's a similar concept to that. So they go on this mission of destruction to destroy a planet, and they get there and they find out that the planet is inhabited, and that's never happened before, and they have to decide what they're gonna do. So yeah, the story idea I had for Only Savages goes back to childhood, really. I had this idea probably inspired by an episode of The Twilight Zone I saw, or something like that. Or possibly even Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't even really remember. I had the idea for so long. I think I was probably 13 or something when I had the idea. And I thought it would be easy to do. I just thought that would be a really great place to start. It's really simple. It's a simple idea, simple story. Everybody can kind of grasp it and hopefully enjoy it. So I set out on this journey to make this puppet film. And I had interned with a puppeteer in Richmond. Barefoot Puppets is the name of the company. They're still around. They're doing awesome online workshops now, which you can find. I'll link to in the description. Really great stuff. And I studied under their head puppeteer Heidi Rugg for a while, and I had ideas like this floating around in my brain, and I was learning to sculpt and all this kind of stuff. But then I left home and went to university to go to film school and learn more about the craft of filmmaking. And I was about to enter kind of an intensive period of that, where I was going to be in the film program full-time-ish. Yeah, I knew that I was going to get consumed with doing school, and it had been a couple of years since I'd really worked on making a film. So I was like, well, why don't I just make a film now, and I'll do it over the summer, and it'll be my summer short film, and it'll be great. And so I started making Only Savages in the summer, thinking I would be done with it, finished and out by the end of the summer. Spoiler alert, it was not out by the end of the summer. I was living in a house with a bunch of other guys, and we had kind of a awful basement that was filled with mold and debris and just absolutely nasty, classic nasty basement, spider webs, bugs, everything. And that was my studio space. So I set up down there and started I'd already written a script, which was 2 or 3 pages long. I was like, this will be easy, no problem. And I got some of the local actors from the theater program to do some voices. We pre-recorded it. A friend of mine who had some gear came over to my house, and we had a session, recorded it. A friend of mine who was an artist came over and did some storyboards for me. And so, yeah, I'm starting to build this team. I've got all my tools in the basement. I'm learning. And I mean, this was the first time I had ever tried to build a stage or a set or anything. So I was completely at sea. And someone had recommended a guy to me named Matthew Lundy, who was a builder, constructor of things. And Matthew came and helped me build the set, basically taught me how to build things because I was pretty green. I didn't come from a family, even though my dad was a woodworker, we didn't have a ton of building projects going on all the time. So I didn't have as much hands-on experience as some other people did when they started. So Matthew was absolutely instrumental in showing me the ropes. And I tried. The hardest part of it was definitely making the puppets, because puppets are extremely challenging, and I didn't want them to be human. I wanted them to be humanoid. And so there was kind of like abstractness to the process. And I had sculpted faces in clay, and I tried to cast it, but I used like scenic hydrocal lightweight plaster, which, if you know anything about plaster, that's like the worst plaster you could pick to do a face, because it's not rigid enough for you to cast, if you wanted to use silicone or latex or whatever. I had a bunch of latex from Michaels, and I was going to cast it in this plaster mold, but I couldn't get the plaster mold to set. So what ended up happening, because the lightweight hydrocal was too lightweight, you have to use like ultracal or something if you're casting in plaster for puppets. But in the name of getting it done, I just kind of like sculpted the faces out of stuff and masking tape, and my friend CT came over and helped, and we just kind of like made the puppets happen. I kind of regret the puppets now, looking back on it. They're not very attractive, and they're very rough first efforts. I think I should have tossed them out and started over again, but that's hard to do emotionally when you're so into a project and you're like, you've invested so much time in it. But that's a really valuable lesson. When George Lucas is talking about the sail barge in Return of the Jedi, he says, the filmmakers are always showing off the amount of time that they spent on what they made, and that's not the important thing. The important thing is, how does it help tell the story? And I think the quality of the puppets, of the sculpt, doesn't serve the story of Only Savages very much, or as well as I would like. But I was worried about, saving the time that I had put in, rather than viewing that as just another step that needed to be done. So that's kind of why they look the way they do. I also believed then and believe now that you can get past the way things look by using your imagination. And I think when you watch Only Savages, this is my opinion and the opinion of other people who've watched it, but you might have a different opinion if and when you watch it. I think you're startled by their weird appearance when they first pop up, and then by the time you get into the story, you're no longer thinking about it. It's just your brain kind of is really adaptable and plastic and can move past and look past all sorts of things. I mean, look at the creepy Hamburglar in the McDonald's commercials. I mean, it's super weird that those are in hamburger commercials, but your brain just kind of accepts it after a while, and it just becomes the way that McDonald's commercials are, and that's the way it is. So yeah, I built these puppets, and I had this set underway. Somewhere along the line, I got into my film program, and it was very intensive, and I didn't have time to work on it very much. I was told we were going to have to make a film as part of the program, and they told me that the film that I had already started wasn't going to work. And they told me they didn't want me to work with puppets, which I thought was really interesting. And shortly after that, I dropped out and abandoned that film program altogether in favor of working for a production company. That production company, I did not stay with them for very long, but they did support me a lot in terms of providing a space for me to film. So we moved the set from my dank basement. I think by this point we had moved out of that house, and so we put everything in the studio space at that production company, and we actually filmed it there, which was a really great experience. We had an amazing puppeteer who came and helped us, an amazing cinematographer, Thomas Flight, who's also a YouTuber. Definitely check out his videos on cinema if you're interested in filmmaking or kind of the emotional craft of film. He's a great one to explore a lot of different topics and technical stuff like editing and sound to performance. I mean, he just covers a range of stuff all around film and cinema. But he was my director of photography, and we had this set which was made essentially of panels. There were sections where you could, in theory, stick your hand up anywhere through the sections, and then over the top of that we had the floor, the puppet stage floor, which was like rubber mats, and then we had panels along the sides that could pop out, so you could stick the camera anywhere to get the different angles of the shot. And then at the back of the spaceship, we had kind of a drum from an old washing machine. And then at the front, we had like a little panel cut out with a green screen so we could do our looking out into space shot. And then we had a little miniature that Matthew Lundy built out of old model kit parts that I had. And that was our hero spacecraft. And so we filmed all that stuff, Life Focus Studios. And we started the editing process, which was kind of a journey in and of itself. I ended up doing most of the visual effects myself, which was new and challenging to me, and not really something that I was interested in. I really wanted to work on set and less in the computer, but it's kind of a necessity when you're first starting out. And if you're interested in puppets, you have to, I think it's important to learn as many tools as you have access to. And a lot of digital tools are free. DaVinci Resolve editing software is free to a point. There's some features you need to pay for, but most of what you need to get started is free. Blender is free. So, I mean, these tools are out there, and there's a lot of great resources for learning. So I think it's important if you're thinking about making your first puppet film to learn to use these tools, even though you're interested in puppets, because learning them will help you a lot. And if you're limited on your resources, you need all the free help you can get. So yeah, we entered a long phase of post-production, visual effects, and sound design. And it takes a long time, right? It was really difficult, and at the time I didn't have a computer that was fast enough to really process the footage, even though it was just in HD. I don't think it was even in 4K. And we shot on a Panasonic GH4, I think. So it wasn't like intense footage, but my computer was so slow. So I used to sneak into the school that I had dropped out of and use their computer lab to edit the movie. And that was my, that was my sneaky plan. But eventually I got it done, and I started submitting it to film festivals. And, then the inevitable process of rejection begins, which is another thing that you have to deal with when you make films. Not everybody's going to like what you do, and most people are going to ignore it. Is the kind of the hardest thing. It's like, you can kind of deal with, my movie's on Amazon Prime. You can see it there now. Only Savages, it's called. It's not the negative reviews that stink, although that is hard in its own way when you get a negative review, because, I mean, people don't know what you put into your film. They just know what they see on the screen. And, if they don't like it, they don't like it. And that's fine. That's the way it is. But if the harder thing to accept is when people actively ignore it, I think. Because it's like you put all this time and effort in, and, if everybody hated it and it was The Room Part 2 and the worst movie ever, or Plan 9 from Outer Space, that's just the way it is, and that's life. But it's much harder. It was much harder to deal with just kind of being ignored. But fortunately, it wasn't ignored. It got to play at a lot of different festivals all over the country. And I'll tell you two stories. One that's really positive, and was really enjoyable, and one that was really a terrible experience, in the hope that you can fortify yourself with the knowledge that it's going to be hard, but if you keep at it, there will be rewards. So one of the earliest festivals that I took Only Savages to was a festival called Bare Bones in Oklahoma. And the Bare Bones Film Festival, I forget, they might have called it something like the International Film Festival, I don't know, was a complete fiasco. My film was scheduled right before the lead feature. That was like the headline production of the whole festival. And I drove out with my wife from Virginia to Oklahoma, which is a really long way, I can tell you. And I had RSVP'd and told them I was coming, and I couldn't wait to see my film on the big screen with this feature, which was pretty good, actually, by the way. And what I didn't know, and they didn't tell me, was that my short had been placed there as kind of filler. In case they were running overtime, they could just drop it. And even though I RSVP'd and they knew I was coming, the curators of the festival cut my short, and it didn't play for the audience. Even though there was a huge audience there was probably like 500 people in the room. They decided not to show my short. And I went to the programming booth and said, "What's happening? I just drove in from Virginia. My short's been cut." And at this point, the movie hadn't really started, so they could have stopped the titles and shown my short and apologized to everybody. But rather than do that, they showed my short after the credits, and there was 4 people left in the room, and it was really sad. And those kind of things, you have to be prepared for that kind of stuff. It's good to know that there are people out there in this community who will do that to you and not feel bad. So yeah, just be wary and be cautious. If you're planning on making big travel arrangements for the festival scene, be careful and be cautious. One amazing festival experience I had was the National Puppetry Festival. They had a film-specific section called the Real Puppetry Film Festival. And I screened alongside a bunch of other puppet filmmakers. I got to meet some of them. Christine Papalexis was premiering a movie called Amaterasu, which is about a Japanese myth, and it was made using marionettes from found objects. It's just a really great film. And both of us, Christine and I, were first-time short filmmakers. It was our first films. But she was a very experienced puppeteer who had worked on a lot of major feature film productions. So it was really great to get to sit next to her and talk to her about puppet filmmaking, and to learn from her, and to watch her film Amaterasu, which is really, really great. It's part of the Handmade Puppet Dreams selection of puppet films, which, if you can find that, or look up their website and they'll tell you where screenings are, how to get a DVD. Yeah, it's definitely one you should catch if you ever get a chance to see it. So yeah, that was an amazing experience where they had us up on stage and they gave everybody a round of applause, and they talked to us and they made you feel welcome. So yeah, definitely talk to other filmmakers and find out what festivals were good experiences, which ones were worthwhile, because it's definitely, it can be a great thing to be in the festival scene, or it can be a really difficult thing. You just have to know your audience, and you have to know what your particular tolerance for rejection is, all those kind of things. So yeah, that was pretty much the Only Savages journey. After the festival thing, I put it on Amazon Prime, which is a thing that you can do. Anybody can do it. Yeah, it's consistently hung out there for a long time. I'm going to put it up on my Buy Me a Coffee page if you'd like to watch it there. For people who support me. You could support me for very little money. You can do it either monthly or a one-time gift, and in exchange for that, you can watch Only Savages, my first puppet film. And, just because you've watched this far in this long rambly video, I'll put a little audio commentary on there too. So you can watch Only Savages with audio commentary. And I'll tell you more about how I made Only Savages and that whole journey. I could go a lot longer on this. I could probably make a feature-length documentary about this 8-minute short film. Which is, that's kind of the cool thing about puppet filmmaking, is that there's so many disciplines and things you learn. You learn a wide variety of things. I haven't even mentioned Darlene Fideli, who did the costumes for the puppets. Amazing work. So great fun to do all that. But yeah, I'll put the film up, and you guys can watch it and let me know if you like it, or you can watch it on Amazon. It is still available there in the UK and the US. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell an overview of Only Savages, my first ever short film, the first of many. And you can see a lot more on my YouTube channel here, Cinemarionette, if you're interested in puppet films. If you have some specific topic you want me to delve into, let me know. Leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Yeah, that's it for now, I guess. Be sure to subscribe, because I need subscribers, and be sure to like the video and share it with people who might find it helpful or interesting. Yeah, that's it for now. Go check out Only Savages, buymeacoffee.com/BenWolf page. That's me. And you could support me there, and I appreciate it. Help me to fund my tea drinking habit. Thank you.